Before you pick up another box of icing, a packet of sweets, or a jar of sauce from the supermarket shelf, stop for a moment. Many of the products we buy every week contain ingredients that look harmless, even familiar, yet several of them have already been banned across Europe. The strange part is this: the very same substances considered too risky for millions of European consumers are still legally added to everyday food in the United Kingdom. It sounds impossible. How can two regions looking at the same scientific evidence reach opposite conclusions? One side says unacceptable danger, while the other says no safety concerns. For older adults and families, this gap in standards matters more than ever. As our bodies age, our ability to filter chemicals weakens, making even low-level exposure more harmful over time. In this investigation, we're going to uncover the additives, colorants, and packaging chemicals that Europe removed from store shelves, but the UK continues to allow. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which ingredients deserve caution, which products often contain them, and what safer alternatives you can choose instead. Let's begin with the compound that shocked even supermarket staff. To understand why this investigation matters, especially for older adults, we first need to look at how food safety decisions are made and why the UK and Europe now stand so far apart. Before Brexit, both sides followed the same regulations under the European Food Safety Authority. When one country banned a chemical, all members followed. But after Brexit, the UK began making its own assessments. That didn't automatically lower standards, but it did create two separate systems evaluating the same scientific evidence in two very different ways. Europe continues to follow what is called the precautionary principle. This means if there is uncertainty or early signs of harm, regulators act first to protect citizens. The UK, however, now uses a more traditional risk-benefit model, allowing a substance until clear and confirmed danger is proven. For older adults, this distinction is crucial. A younger person's body may recover more quickly from chemical exposure. But as we age, the liver and kidneys work more slowly, inflammation lasts longer, and our cells repair DNA damage less efficiently. Even small amounts of additives can accumulate over years, creating hidden risks. Marketing adds another layer of confusion. Many labels use friendly terms such as natural coloring, whitening agent, or processing aid. These words sound harmless, but they can disguise substances that Europe has already restricted or removed entirely. Packaging is no exception. Items like grease-resistant paper-coated cardboard and certain plastics can release chemicals into food without any warning on the label. Recent scientific reviews reinforce these concerns. Studies from EFSA, the World Health Organization, and multiple universities show mounting evidence of endocrine disruption, immune system effects, and potential DNA damage from substances still used in British supermarkets. Yet most shoppers have no idea these differences exist. They trust the packaging, assume the standards are universal, and continue buying products without knowing that safer alternatives exist just across the channel. This video is not about creating fear. It's about giving families, especially older adults, the information they need to make informed choices in a market where the rules have quietly changed. Now let's examine the specific ingredients that reveal just how wide this regulatory gap has become. Titanium dioxide, listed on labels as E171, appears in cake decorations, confectionery coatings, white sweets, and even certain sauces. Most shoppers see it as a simple whitening ingredient, yet Europe has banned it entirely, while the United Kingdom still allows it on supermarket shelves. For decades, manufacturers used E171 because it creates a bright, clean color that makes products look fresher. That changed in 2022 when the European Food Safety Authority reviewed nearly 10,000 studies and concluded it could no longer be considered safe. The concern centers on nanoparticles, tiny fragments that can cross the gut lining and accumulate in organs such as the liver and spleen. Research links these particles to DNA damage and chromosomal instability risks that become more serious for older adults with weaker cellular repair. Labels rarely explain this. They simply list E171 or color. It appears harmless. In reality, it deserves caution. And it leads us to another group of additives with long-standing concerns. Artificial food dyes, such as Sunset Yellow, Carmesine Ponceau 4R, and Allura Red, still appear in sweets, drinks, syrups, and packaged snacks. They are not banned in the UK or EU, but in 2010, Europe began requiring a warning. May have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. The trigger was a 2007 double-blind study at the University of Southampton involving 297 children. Published in The Lancet, it found a statistically significant rise in hyperactivity. These dyes can break down into reactive compounds associated with chronic low-grade inflammation and changes in neurotransmitters effects that can influence mood, sleep, and cognitive stability. Older adults who already face more fragile neurological balance may be particularly sensitive. Many brands soften the truth by using terms like natural flavors, even when the coloring is artificial. Some companies use natural dyes only in EU products, while keeping synthetic versions for UK and US markets. This quiet split shows how regulations shape what ends up in your kitchen. Another chemical divide involves BPA, a compound found in metal can, linings, plastic containers, and jar lids. Europe reassessed BPA in 2023 and reduced its acceptable intake by a staggering factor of 20,000 after reviewing more than 800 new studies. The updated findings showed strong links to immune dysfunction, endocrine disruption, and hormonal imbalance. Despite this, the UK still uses the far older 2015 standard. BPA interferes with hormones that regulate metabolism, thyroid activity, and inflammation areas already vulnerable in older adults. Yet most canned goods carry no label indicating BPA presence, leaving shoppers unaware. Only some plastic bottles advertise BPA-free, creating the illusion that the issue has been addressed. PFAS chemicals, often called forever chemicals, present an even more persistent risk. These substances are used in grease-resistant wrappers, takeaway boxes, baking papers, and fast food packaging. They do not break down and can remain in the body for decades. A CDC survey found PFAS in the blood of 97 to 99% of tested individuals. PFAS accumulate in the liver and thyroid and are associated with kidney cancer, testicular cancer, immune suppression, and developmental issues. Europe introduced sweeping bans in 2024, but the UK has yet to implement similar restrictions. Packaging does not disclose PFAS content, so consumers have no way to identify or avoid them unless manufacturers voluntarily switch to safer materials. Some brands take this divergence even further by producing different recipes for different regions. A familiar example is confectionery sold in the EU with natural coloring, while the same products in the UK or the United States still contain synthetic dyes such as red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. These natural alternatives cost up to 100 times more, creating financial incentives to keep artificial colors where regulations are weaker. A 2024 review in the journal Carcinogenesis highlighted temporal links between rising synthetic dye consumption in past decades and the later increase in early-onset colorectal cancer. While not definitive, the findings raise important questions. Older adults whose gut lining is more prone to inflammation may face higher risks from long-term exposure. Yet the packaging for both regions often looks identical, leaving the consumer unaware of the disparity. Finally, preservatives such as BHA E320 and BHT E321 remain common in cereals, processed meats, snacks, and baked goods. They prevent fats from becoming rancid and have been used since the mid-20th century. However, the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies BHA as possibly carcinogenic, and both substances have been linked to hormonal interference and oxidative stress. These effects may be amplified in older adults who already experience reduced antioxidant defenses and slower metabolic processes. Labeling often hides them under general terms such as antioxidant or preservative without explaining their controversial history, yet they continue to extend the shelf life of products that seem perfectly wholesome. Among all the substances we've examined, one stands out because of the extraordinary gap between European and UK standards: bisphenol A, or BPA. While additives like colors or whitening agents raise legitimate concerns, BPA represents a far deeper issue, one where the scientific reassessment was so significant that regulators rewrote the rules almost overnight. Yet the United Kingdom has not followed. In April 2023, the European Food Safety Authority completed a new evaluation of BPA. Their previous safe limit, established in 2015, was 4 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day. After reviewing more than 800 new studies, many focused on immune function, hormone disruption, and developmental effects, they reduced the acceptable exposure to just 0.2 nanograms. That is a decrease of 20,000 times. Such an adjustment is almost unheard of in food safety policy. It signals that the earlier standard dramatically underestimated the potential harm. The new evidence showed that BPA may impair the immune system even at extremely low doses, affecting how the body responds to infections and inflammation. These risks are especially concerning for older adults whose immune defenses naturally weaken with age. Yet in the UK, cans, jar lids, beverage containers, and ready-made meals still use BPA-based linings under the older, far looser threshold. There is no requirement to label these products, no warning to consumers, and no indication that Europe has already taken decisive action. Some countries, such as France, went further, banning BPA entirely from all food contact materials. Meanwhile, British shoppers continue using cans and packaging made to standards Europe now considers outdated and insufficiently protective. This contrast reveals our most troubling finding: the same compound that Europe views as a critical health risk remains completely legal and invisible on UK supermarket shelves. Understanding the risks is only the first step. The real value comes from knowing how to protect yourself and your family, especially if you are older or have underlying health conditions. The good news is that safer choices are available, and with a few simple habits, you can significantly reduce exposure to these additives and chemicals. Start by reading ingredient labels slowly and carefully. Look for E numbers that deserve caution: E171 for titanium dioxide, E1110, E122, E124, and E129 for synthetic dyes, E320 and E321 for BHA and BHT. If you see vague phrases like color whitening agent or antioxidant, take a moment to check the details. Many companies rely on general terms to make ingredients appear harmless. Whenever possible, choose products that use natural colors such as beetroot, paprika, or turmeric. Next, pay attention to packaging. Choose glass jars instead of canned versions when both options are available. For soups, tomatoes, beans, and sauces, glass drastically reduces the risk of BPA exposure. If you must buy canned goods, avoid those containing acidic or oily foods, as these draw chemicals out of the lining more easily. For takeaway or ready-made meals, transfer food out of grease-resistant packaging promptly, since fast can migrate into hot or fatty food. Older adults may want to take additional precautions. Limit highly processed snacks with long ingredient lists, as these tend to rely heavily on preservatives. Opt for simpler foods with fewer additives. Fresh or minimally processed items reduce unnecessary chemical exposure. When possible, buy store-brand products sold in the EU or Northern Ireland, where packaging rules follow the newer European standards. You do not need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Small, consistent choices, reading labels, selecting safer packaging, and choosing natural alternatives can greatly reduce long-term risk while keeping your daily routine simple and enjoyable. This investigation has shown that many everyday foods and packages contain additives and chemicals that Europe now considers too risky, yet they remain common on UK shelves. The differences are not always obvious, and the labels rarely explain the full story. For older adults whose bodies process chemicals more slowly and whose immune systems are more vulnerable, these gaps in regulation matter even more. But awareness is a powerful form of protection. When you understand what to look for, whether it is a specific E number, a type of packaging, or a familiar colorant, you can make choices that reduce unnecessary exposure. Protecting your health and your family's well-being begins with simple, informed decisions every time you shop. Which of these ingredients or packaging chemicals surprised you the most, and have you seen any of them on products in your local store? Your experience can help others understand what to watch for. If you want ongoing evidence-based reports that make shopping safer for you and your family, consider subscribing so you never miss new investigations. Thank you for spending your time with this report. Your attention to these issues shows a commitment to protecting your health and supporting responsible food standards for everyone.